It is 7 minutes past 8, and the son of a man from Coventry who died after being given medicine made from contaminated blood says he wants a proper apology and compensation for families who've been affected. Thousands of people were infected with hepatitis C and HIV through NHS blood products in the 1970s and 80s. A public inquiry published last year concluded that more should have been done to screen blood and donors.
Last month, the government announced it wants to increase the amount of money on offer to victims by a further £100 million, taking the total to £225 million over the next 5 years. But it's not satisfied Jason Evans, whose dad was one of the hundreds who died. Good morning, Jason.
Yeah, good morning. Just to elaborate on something you said there about this £100 million, people should know that this is a figure bandied about by Jane Ellison, and she's been very misleading, in my opinion, with what she's been telling people.
Well, she's the public health minister. Let's talk about that in a moment. But let's talk about your dad.
Yeah.
Tell us about your dad and the condition.
Yeah. So he was born with an illness called haemophilia, which basically prevents the blood from clotting properly. In the 70s and 80s, this new medicine became available, commonly known as Factor VIII. And it eventually emerged that it was killing these people. It was infecting them with HIV, hepatitis C. It was a product that was imported mainly from America. I could elaborate more on that. However, there's certain things I can't say today because of the threat of legal action being taken against me if I do.
You were 4 when your dad passed away.
Yeah.
That must have been tough.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's the only memory I actually have of my dad is the day of his funeral. It's as clear in my mind as it could have been yesterday, and that's my only memory. And it's now years later. He died in 1993. I'm 26 years old. I was 4 when he died, and still, we use this word compensation. The reason compensation hasn't been given to date to anybody. This £100 million isn't compensation. It's to support means testing schemes that discriminate against people, is because the word compensation implicates liability, and neither the government or the NHS or any corporate entity wants to, on the record, say that they're liable for this happening.
Well, we did ask the Department of Health for a response on this. They said they don't comment on individual cases, but referred to us a statement from Jane Ellison, the Ellison that you mentioned, the Public Health Minister. She said sorry on behalf of the government to every person, you, affected by this tragedy, and added that the department is consulting on a choice of options for the bereaved. Currently, bereaved partners or spouses are eligible to apply for means tested support from the charities. She says she's heard concerns from many people who do not like having to apply for charity. What's your response to that?
Well, let me tell you, the Caxton Foundation sent out a document. This is in the public domain, and it states what the new proposals are. Let me tell you what it says the new proposals are for people infected. It says there will be no discretionary regular payments, winter fuel payments or grants, no access to free expert advice on benefits, money management or debt advice, no free signposting and support on other issues. For bereaved spouses and partners, it says, under the new proposals, spouses and partners who are bereaved in the future will continue to receive the payment their infected partner or spouse was receiving at the time of the death for 1 further year. After this time, bereaved spouses and partners would not be eligible for any further support, including any discretionary support.
Your mum, a widow,
yes,
and you, actually, according to that, won't be entitled to anything.
Yep, that's right.
What's more important to you, Jason, having an apology or the cash?
We want a full, final and fair resolution. These apologies are fine, but they're not fine if they're backed up by nothing. What I believe would be fair would be something consistent with what happened in Ireland by the Lindsay Tribunal. To give you an idea of what happened in Ireland, this was just a few years ago. The compensation that was given was anywhere between €280,000 to €5 million, depending on the severity of the case.
So are you saying the cash then? I want to get clear. What's more important to you, Jason? Having that apology or having the cash?
Both. I think the people affected by this, let's keep in mind that there's thousands of families that have been torn apart. My family's been torn apart. They want a real apology that's backed up with a real settlement behind it.
Jason, are you angry?
I'm extremely angry. I've been deprived of knowing my father. People have lost their sons and daughters and brothers and sisters. Families are ripped apart. My family's been ripped apart. I haven't had the chance to have a real family. There's relatives of mine that I never see anymore because of this. My dad's parents have died without having ever seen justice, and there's many people in similar situations to mine, and it's about time that someone did something about it.
So what can be done then? What will you do going forwards?
There are people that are struggling to live normal lives. People have been robbed of the chance to have careers or houses or families. And yet, cash can make that better. It can help. It's never going to bring people back.
But like you say, can it? Because obviously, we could feel your anger, we can feel your frustration, but cash isn't going to bring your dad back.
That's absolutely true, and I agree. And that's part of my anger. That's why we want a real apology. I mean, if you look at what happened in France, 2 government officials went to prison over this. No one's gone to prison here over this.
Do you think the stigma of having your father infected with HIV affected you, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. There's, especially at the time, there's a massive stigma attached to the disease. There still is to some extent. When it came out that my dad was infected with HIV, he lost his job straight away. My mum also lost her job, and she wasn't even infected. She worked at a bakery. And that goes to show you the stigma that's attached to this disease. And it's not just my situation. You will hear many stories just like that.
And it's the injustice, isn't it? It's the fact that this has happened. It wasn't his fault. All of this really unfortunate circumstances. None of it was his fault, and nobody's been made to pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many facets to this, and so much wrong has been done by corporate entities and health departments. For anyone that wants to learn more about this subject in depth, I would heavily recommend watching a documentary called Factor-8, the Arkansas Prison Blood Scandal, by a documentary maker called Kelly Dudar. And just to read you a short excerpt from the blurb on the DVD, it says, "For more than 2 decades, the Arkansas prison blood system sold blood plasma from inmates infected with viral hepatitis and AIDS. Thousands of unwitting victims who transfused a medication called Factor-8 made from the blood died as a result." And that's where this all stemmed from.
Okay, Jason, we will continue to cover your case and to follow your case. Thank you for coming in. It's very difficult, we can see. Thank you.
And this is the first time you've talked about it outside of your family, isn't it?
It is. I've been silent on this for a long time. I've spent pretty much my entire adult life researching the subject and trying to find out why my dad is dead. And the more I've read and the more I've found out, the more shocked, disturbed and disgusted I am.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming in and speaking so eloquently and so passionately about it. And we will follow your story and what you're going to do next.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks.
We did ask the Department of Health for a response on this. They said they don't comment on individual cases. As Trish said, the Public Health Minister, though, Jane Ellison, says she is sorry on behalf of the government to every person affected by this tragedy.